Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar focusing on supplier diversity. We're excited to get started. So before that, I'll just run through some brief housekeeping notes. My name is McKenna Malin. I'm an editor at Utah Business. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted within the next day or two to utahbusiness.com. That means that shortly after this webinar ends, you can visit our site and access our whole library of free webinars, including this one. So you'll have the ability to watch it over again, send it to your friends and colleagues, whatever you'd like. Honestly, without further ado, I'd just like to introduce today's moderator, James Jackson III. He serves as the Supplier Diversity Program Manager for Zions Bank Corporation and is the founder of the Utah Black Chamber. James, thank you so much for joining us and assembling this great panel of people. I'll allow you to get started and introduce our other special guests.
Thank you, McKenna. Appreciate the opportunity and it's always great to partner with the Utah Business Magazine. Utah Black Chamber has a partnership with Utah Business Magazine for a little time now, and I figured, well, best way to do it is incorporate Zions Bank into the discussion as we talk about the dynamics of supplier diversity. And who I have here with me this afternoon, for your pleasure, is three distinguished guests who are also focused on this initiative as we look to elevate the visibility of supplier diversity here today. And so what I'll go ahead and do is I'll just do a brief introduction of who we have here, and then I'll call on each one of them to dive deeper into their responsibilities within their given roles. Going through my Brady Bunch screen clockwise, I'll start with Mr. Raymond Christie, who I've known for quite some time. Not only is a member of Omega Psi Phi, but he's the airport senior planner, a disadvantaged business enterprise coordinator for the Salt Lake City Department of Airports. Raymond, great to have you here. Zeman Zhao, who I've known for quite some time, affiliated with the Utah Asian Chamber, but here she's representing as the director for Economic Opportunity, Center for Economic Opportunity and Belonging with EDC Utah. And then we also have CEO Fernando Martinez, CEO of the Northwest Minority Supplier Development Council. He's actually the only one that's not based here locally in Utah, but within the Northwest Supplier Diversity Development Council's footprint. Utah is within that particular region, so we appreciate him representing on that side as well. So this is what we're going to go through, is trying to identifying what supplier diversity is, because it's from all different aspects, from corporate, government, city, and state, and how we can get our diverse small businesses incorporated into the supplier diversity opportunities. So with that, what I like to do is go to Raymond first and kind of share with me, share with the audience your role and responsibility more with the Salt Lake International Airport.
Well, thank you very much, James. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and provide information on what is some of the things that we're doing here at the airport that impacts our city, but also impacts our state as well as Salt Lake County. And I have to also give props and recognition to the other guests, because they have a long, distinguished resume that I had an opportunity to review. And, it's just really good to be with people that are in the trenches, making it happen for small businesses across our country and, of course, our state. Here at the Salt Lake City International Airport, my job, I'm that person that has the opportunity to create opportunities for small businesses owned by women and minorities on the sides on construction, on our federally funded construction. And because our airport facility has some federal funds in it, we have to implement a program to assist small businesses who are looking to be a part of our concessions program, whether it's in the terminal or with on-property rental car companies. So I'm talking about contracting and contracting opportunities of goods and services under rental cars. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but there's opportunities whether you're towing or transporting cars or repairing cars or providing brakes, parts, or windshields. The in-terminal side of the part of job that I do is any concessions going into the terminal. I review their contracts to come up with a goal, an opportunity for prime concessionaires to meet. And in doing so, to meet that, they have to find businesses that are certified into a program called the Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. So with that, It gives an opportunity for those businesses that are certified in that program to help these prime concessionaires meet the contract goals that I've now placed on their contracts. And the impact of that is that those contracts are 7 and 10 years long. On the construction side, I do the same thing as far as putting contract goals on construction projects that have federal funds. And because of that, I get those businesses to get exposed and get the experience that they need in doing any type of construction that's applicable to the particular project, so they can turn around and go into the mainstream and be able to compete and say, hey, well, I did this, I did this, I did concrete work, I did flat work, I did striping out at the airport. Here's their resume. So that way they can get that job. Bottom line, what I do, I take the catch out of a catch-22. People can't get any jobs if they don't have any experience, and they can't get any experience if they don't have any jobs. So that's, in a nutshell, what I do.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Raymond. How does one business get qualified or certified? What does it take to become a disadvantaged minority business enterprise so they can get qualified for these type of opportunities?
The disadvantaged business enterprise certification basically is saying that I am that this person that is applying for certification is a small business. And that's the definition of a DBE firm. Folks always sometimes get a little kind of caught up in terminology. Disadvantaged business enterprise. I'm not disadvantaged. No, hey, a rose by any other name is still a rose. So the certification standards are pretty straightforward. You can find them right there in the regulations of 49 CFR Part 26, as well as Part 23 for concessions. And it states, criteria that you own, operate, and control your business, as well as personal net worth, you're under a certain dollar amount, as well as your business doesn't gross higher than the criteria established by the Small Business Administration as a small business. And that criteria is right there. And that's some of the things that our friend, Mr. Martinez from the Great Pacific Northwest, can also talk about what those certification standards are, because to a certain degree, a lot of those standards are pretty much the same. But folks meeting that criteria, and the certification process is someone reviewing the application and then actually visiting them and doing what we call an on-site interview to make sure they say what they say they do, and they do what they say they are, and they be who they say they be. So that way they can then participate on contracts that are funded by the United States Department of Transportation. That includes not only the airports, but it also includes the transit agencies. It includes the state of Utah Department of Highways, as well as cities like Park City Corporation, Cedar City, as well as the city of St. George that gets funds from the United States Department of Transportation directly. That also includes Logan Cache Valley Transit District to our north. Mr. Martinez, I'm sorry, I'm getting so formal. Don't you have similar certification standards as far as for the National Minority Supply Development Council?
Yes, Raymond, thank you for teeing that up. We are actually a third-party certifying agency. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is a third-party certifying agency, and we certify ethnic minorities. So we certify African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, and Native Americans, Alaska Natives. But the certification process between DBE or even state or even our certification is almost identical. There's a couple of nuances in terms of terms of certification, a couple of nuances in terms of if you're a sole proprietor, you may have to prove a little bit more financial ownership of the organization, but the same thing applies, Raymond. You have to own it, you have to manage it, and you have to control it on a day-to-day basis. And so the certification itself is very, very, it's a great process to vet out those businesses that are legitimately owned by disadvantaged ownership or by minorities versus those that are trying to set up fronts and use our disadvantaged community to prop up their own companies. So the certification is, I would say 98% of it is identical. So when you certify with Raymond, you're pretty much ready to certify with the NMSDC.
Awesome, great. Thanks for teeing that up, Raymond. I'm just gonna to provide a nice segue to get more into the NMSDC and all that it does. You talked about the certifications, but how else does the NMSDC work with not only those that are certified, but those corporations who are also have a program or looking to introduce a supplier diversity program into their organization?
Thank you, James. And again, thank you for inviting me to be on this panel. And it's great to serve on the panel with Z and with Raymond. Thank you so much. So the certification is only one aspect of what we do, James. But the most important piece of it comes in the development and the networking and the advocacy, right? So for us to be able to help develop these firms, once they have to be certified, right? Or we have another program that before they even get certified, we can provide them some technical assistance, right? We can help them with building a business plan. We can help them with sales communications. We can help them with building a marketing capability statement. So we can help them with all this work that has to be done in order for them to be able to really sell their business, right? So from the basics but we're an accelerator, right? So most of businesses that we do business with are businesses that have been around for at least 2 to 3 years. So from the certification, we accelerate their development, we accelerate their networking, and then on the back end, what we're always doing is we're advocating. We're always educating on the public agencies. We're always educating our corporate members. We're always educating everybody around us in terms of the value that minority businesses bring to the community. Now, the piece where we lend the most value, James, is in making sure that our corporate members understand the value of supplier diversity. So as I said, we're always educating our corporate members. We're always educating our public agencies because they're the ones that actually have the contracts with which they can engage with minority businesses. So when we have a good, solid understanding from the corporations and the public agencies about the value of it, and we have the minority businesses that have the competencies to engage in partnership with it, that's where the real magic begins to happen. And so that's the approach that we take. We educate our corporate members, our public agencies, and our MBEs, and then we create this network where they all start working together. And so quite significantly, James, in the last, even through the pandemic, in the last 5 years, our network of minority businesses has scaled up from about 7 billion to 10 billion. So you can see where engaging properly with the corporations and with the public agencies really helps our minority businesses. Now, we as a council, we can help these corporations and public agencies stand up their supplier diversity process, right? So we have a long history of doing this. We've been in the Northwest now for 43 years, and we've been working with the Utah region since 2013. So we have a long history of doing this. And so our skill set comes in understanding the process and the methodology that it takes in order to stand up a supplier diversity process. And we also have a lot of understanding of what the pitfalls are. And because we have a huge understanding of that, we have a deep understanding of that, we can actually prevent our corporate members, our public agencies from falling into those dark pits. So we can avoid a lot of risk by working with them.
All right, awesome. You mentioned, educating the corporate members. What type of things do you share with them about, why it's important to have a supplier diversity program?
Well, and that's a great question, James. And I'm gonna share something with you that I got really excited because, when you bring in minority businesses into the competitive environment, when you provide supplier diversity, very simply is the provision of a fair and equitable opportunity to engage. Fair and equitable, it's that simple. That's what supplier diversity is designed to do. But what's happening is our minority businesses, most of them come from corporate America. Most of them have the experience that it takes to work in corporate America. but now they're coming in as entrepreneurs. And so what our corporate members understand, and the conversation that we have with them, is that one, our minority businesses are more efficient. They don't have this big complex to where they have to charge exorbitant amounts of money. They're more nimble. So when the changes come, they can move quicker. Their cost structure is much more competitive than it might be if you don't bring them in. And then the efficiency, when you look at the cost savings, say for example, you and I are striking a deal and I save you $1 million on this deal. Statistics tell us that MBEs improve efficiencies by about 43%. So in essence, what you've gained as value is not only have you saved $1 million on your operating costs, but you've also gained a 43% efficiency. So that efficiency also saves money, right? So you have a positive effect, a positive return on your investment in two manners. The competitiveness to really be and bring in minority businesses and small business to compete is so important, especially when there's organizations that when they look at incumbents, it's very easy to say, like, I'm so busy, I'm just going to re-sign this contract. But the reality of it is that when you bring that competitiveness into the sourcing and procurement environment, you will see an average of 17 to 35% savings. That's how significant that competitive environment is. Now, I was jumping for joy. We recruited a new member, and I won't mention their name. And we were talking about the value that I just discussed with you. And you know what they said to me? And I was like, oh my God, I've never heard this. They said to me, Fernando, why would I want to pay you less than I'm paying a majority-owned company? I said, exactly. He says, no. He says, we're going to level everybody up. We're not about, paying ethnic minorities less than we're paying majority whites. We are about leveling everybody up to the same level. And I told him, I said, I've been in this space for 23 years now. This is the first time that I've ever heard this. And so now our educational opportunity is, how do we get every other corporation to level everybody up? Now we're beginning to establish a level of parity across our communities to where everybody's winning.
Wow, that's great. I love to hear that, especially for me, running the Supplier Diversity program with Zions Band Corporation, and being here in Utah, that leveling up piece that's great to hear, because here at Zions, that's what we love to do. We love to serve the community in all aspects and be more reflective of the communities we serve. But it's not about not only is it about cost efficiencies, it's about the relationship, right? If we're developing this relationship, we want to be able to go both ways, while they're elevating us, while we're sourcing for those needs and growing, our platform. The only way we're going to be able to continue growing is ensuring that these businesses that are supporting us, that we grow them too. And hopefully we get them on board as a Zions Bank customer. That's no shameless plug. There's no shame in my game. We're always looking to grow everybody, because we grow them. That's the relationship, and that's how we always gain new clients.
I'm sorry, Raymond. And by growing them, James, you've accelerated the growth of our communities, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the important piece, right? So when we think about it, it's not only about growing the minority business, it's about growing the people that work within that business, and it's about growing the communities where they live.
Exactly. Raymond, you're gonna say something real quick?
And I'm excited at the point that Z brings to the table, a whole nother piece of how we help educate a whole nother community on the impact that small businesses owned by women and minorities, the Supplier Diversity program in a given state, economically, how it impacts our community.
Yeah. And a great, you're always ahead of the game here, Raymond. I'm trying to tee up people. You're just going ahead and just teeing it up for us over here. But Z, I mean, working within EDC Utah for quite some time now, and they've always been great about, growing our businesses here, getting them relocate here, and as we continue to grow our Utah economy. But being in the Center for Economic Opportunity and Belonging, there's another initiative that you guys are focused on growing, and mind sharing with the audience and what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Center for Economic Opportunity and Belonging in EDC Utah was created last year to be the private sector advancement to advance the Utah Compact on Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Is a statement, a philosophy that many of the businesses in Utah have signed on to, as well as elected leaders and political leaders. So as a community, as Utahns, we have said there are inequities in the community, and we have to invest in spaces to close those inequities. And I think that what is so interesting about supplier diversity, for those of you who don't know, the history of supplier diversity in the United States is firmly rooted in the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, when the big five model industry in Michigan really came up together and say, this is the right thing to do, but it's also a good thing to do for economy. When we are able to grow minority-owned, women-owned businesses, it grows the entire pie, not just one segment of the pie. And so this is part of what the EDC Utah and the center is doing, is help people understand the importance of lifting up small and minority-owned businesses in the state. And we do this in a couple of ways, right? We work with private businesses and to help them understand, similar to what Fernando is saying, that there is an economic benefit to helping and diversifying your supply chain, right? So at the education piece, being able to speak to our investors and private businesses in Utah and articulating the point. And the second point I think is really important too, is making sure that minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses have the capacity to be able to meet the demands of the suppliers, of the buyer, I should say. And that's a space that I think Utah is prime now in a space right now where we have to say, yes, they're important, and we have to invest in the infrastructure to help them build up the capacities so that they could be buyers in the space. And we hope at one time we're able to be offer a lot of the services where the Northwest Supplier Council is doing. In Utah right now, we are looking to the great councils in a nearby states to support us with those efforts. But I think that there is a great opportunity with the momentum that we're building from the discussion here today, from the stakeholders who's been doing this work for a long time, to say, let's make a concerted effort. Let's put money where what we say we are going to do, and let's invest in those infrastructures so that we truly are able to make those impact and moving that needle so that we can have more small minority-owned, women-owned businesses to become suppliers to the corporations that wants to work with them.
James, can I add something to Z's?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Z, so we practice a model here, what we call C cube plus Q. And so what that is it's Q stands for qualifications, right? Do you have the right qualifications? Do you have the right license to do business at the Salt Lake City Airport, right? Do you have that? Do you have those qualifications? Just basically, are you a legitimate business that has the necessary requirements and qualifications to do business? And then what we do is we have the C1 is the capabilities. What are your real capabilities? The C2 is the capacity. And do you have the capacity to scale up and down? And then the C3, that's the CQ, is the contracts. As Raymond pointed out earlier, is that I like that catch-22 model that you displayed, Raymond, because if you don't have the contracts to validate that you have the capacity to scale, the capabilities and the qualifications, you're kind of stuck, right? So that's kind of like a model that we work with, Z, with the intention of making sure that we help everybody understand that it's not just I have capacity to scale up or down, but I have the capabilities to support the capacity. So
yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. I love that. And Z, what type of conversations have you had with investors regarding this direction towards making supplier diversity more visible here?
Yeah, I think at this stage we're doing convening some conversations. This is not a new space. Raymond, Christy, and I, and you, James, we've been in this space for over 2 decades now. I think that what is exciting in front of us right now is the opportunity for us to have other allies join our conversation and discussion and really invest in that space. So we're looking at a couple of things that working with state government and the legislature as well as the private companies to think about how do we create an infrastructure, the ecosystem. To Fernando's point, right? Bringing the suppliers and buyers together, that is the key. What are the mechanisms that are able to bring those people together? We have a great businesses who wants to, including Science Bank, who say, I want to do more business with minority and women-owned businesses. And we have small businesses and minority-owned businesses who wants to do it, but what is the mechanism that we're able to do collectively to bring people together? So I think that's the first thing we're trying to do is how do we create an ecosystem? How do we create an infrastructure, right? And in addition to that is building up the capacities. I love that triple C concept. We have to invest to making sure that we are able to build up those capacities of small businesses to scale up, scale down, but also be able to address the needs once they're doing business with those big companies and corporations. There's so much involved, and being able to say we not only say we rely on you to do it, but we're gonna do our part to help you get to a point where you can become suppliers. And I think that's the key is getting people in the space, in the conversation to not just talk, but also make the commitment to invest in that space so that we make this possible.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and speaking of that structure, creating that ecosystem, Raymond, you've been doing this for a while where the government's actually, federally mandated to look for these disadvantaged businesses. For organizations or companies that are looking to initiate this program, they were trying to launch this program, or they're just trying to be more intentional about identifying diverse suppliers, how does one go about doing that?
Well, there's a lot of benefits of doing the Supplier Diversity program. I'm going to be honest and talk about from a whole different perspective. I'm not going to talk about the right thing to do or how do we grow people that decide to work for the toughest person that they ever decide to work for themselves. I'm not going to talk about the resources that businesses need so they can exceed past the 5 years. I want to talk about something really plainly basic. Let's get paid. And what I mean by let's get paid, I'm talking about on a city-state, on a local municipality, in a given city, in a given state, in a given county. The more businesses that are paying taxes to that county, to that local municipality, to that city, helps that city reinvest that money to be utilized for other things within that city to provide better services, provide better goods, provide better resources for the people that are in that community. The people in that community that are spending that dollar are re-spending that money within their own communities. So by having more people that get the training, they get to get the opportunity to grow their business, so they're providing goods and services from a different perspective, from a different angle, but still providing the quality goods and services that we need as a given community. The community is reinvesting that money within that community, and goes back to what some of the things that Z is doing, and then James, that you also are part of, and I'm also a part of, on how we are impacting our communities economically, not only from a small business perspective, but from minorities and women, everyone giving and doing what they wish to do. But now we're all supporting ourselves and growing ourselves from within to grow our economy. I find it very interesting that the state of Utah was very successful in getting over the hump of the recession in 2008 by having a robust economy before and even after that time frame in our particular country. And we do that how? Good question. But one of the things that the state talks about is how we help small businesses grow. Well, we are finally at a point right now where the state is putting as Z said it very eloquently, putting the money where their mouth is. And so I've gotten way off of the track of the question that you asked me, James. And I just wanted to make the point that from an economic standpoint and from a financially impacting economic standpoint, small businesses growing, the amount of taxes that they pay back to those counties, to those cities, to the state, helps us utilize more and more services that help our own community grow. And that's I think one of the biggest reasons why companies should embrace and fully embrace, like Zions Bank has, embrace a supplier diversity program. There's other companies that are here in the state that have programs that are a good opportunity for Fernando to go in and talk about, hey, we're going through and vetting folks and showing that they own, operate, and control and have the financial capability and the desire to provide goods and services that you utilize, that you're spending, you, Mr. Corporation in the state of Utah, you're spending with someone that's outside the state. Well, if you spend that money here, you wind up growing that. How many times do you spend that dollar how many times do you spend that dollar in Salt Lake City? How many times do you spend that dollar in Salt Lake County? How many times do you spend that dollar in the state of Utah? The more and more we turn that dollar in and over in our given communities helps grow our communities to sustain and support the residents.
No, yeah, I appreciate you actually adding to that, because I was actually going to get to that question. Like, maybe you should have been moderating, Raymond. I should be in as a panelist, because you're. I feel like you have my notes here right in front of you. But I appreciate you sharing that information, because it's like buying local, right? Not only buying local, but making sure the money is spent within the community, and that's how we really get thriving. But I'll go a deeper dive into this question, and pose to either you or Fernando, because a lot of companies will say, well, I can't find a diverse business for this type of sourcing need, or I don't know if there's a diverse business that really handles this. Like, what would be your response to that? Like, how does one go out and find diverse businesses capable to handle certain needs that they may not feel there will be diverse businesses in that opportunity?
Well, you saw intentionally, I put my glasses on because it's exactly what I'm about to say. By putting on your corporate glasses, by putting on that new lens, and sometimes the lens is already there. It's just a matter of tapping into what currently exists. There's organizations such as the Utah Black Chamber, the Hispanic Association, the Swazo Business Center. There are a lot of community organizations that are currently doing work on the behalf of other businesses to help them grow. Organizations like represented by Fernando, the Minority Development Supplier Council is another way that they can tap into where to find these businesses. And interestingly enough, places like the Department of Commerce that we found, Z and I found, Department of Commerce, or even Z has databases. Even the city of Salt Lake, under the Economic Impact Office, has databases of where they can find. The counties have some of that. So that's one place to start as far as putting on that lens to see who's out there and who can do the work. Because I guarantee you, there's a lot of people that will definitely have the resume to say, hey, I got experience. I'm just looking for the opportunity. What's been your experience, Fernando?
Raymond, I will not repeat what you said, but our theme for this year is resurging partnerships, empowering future generations, right? Because what we do, we're trying to make sure that we're looking 3 generations down. And so what we do today in the short term, we want to make sure that we have an impact so that our great-grandchildren are benefiting, right? So if my son starts looking at his great-grandchildren, that's how we're going to start building generational wealth, right? But I'm not going to go into the partnerships there, but I think that putting on those lenses, Raymond, I think is very, very critical. We have all these entities that support the growth of diverse businesses, right? And so, when we look at, and we have to be intentional about this, because when you look at the census data, you know, out of 10 businesses in this country, 2 are white women, 7 are white male. So we have to be very intentional in making sure that we're going after the diverse community. And so, but more important, and in order to do that and to be able to research the partnerships, Raymond, like you've described, we have to have the right person in the supplier diversity role, like James, right? And it has to be a role that is fully funded. It can't be a role that says, you know, 10% of your time is for supplier diversity. The other 90% is to buy or do something else. We have to have a full-time position that is fully committed and funded to do this, right? Because that's the only way you're going to have time to be out there looking for these candidates that can do business. The other thing is that, you know, I did an experiment years ago. I was training an organization, and James, to your point, we can't find businesses, we can't find minority businesses, they don't have the capabilities, they don't have the capacity. And so I did a survey, and I said, hey, so what are the 5 top things that you find challenging in searching for diverse firms? And same thing, they don't have, there's not enough of them, we can't find them, they don't have capacity, they don't have the experience, blah, 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 blah. Well, then I did a search within their database, and I found all these diverse businesses, and they were spending like something like 50 million with them. Mm. And so I put up the survey question when I was doing in front of, there was about 32 buyers. I put up the survey, and I put up the answers, and they were like, yeah, they were all nodding their head. And then I put up how much they spent with minority businesses, like $50 million. And I said, you see this number? I said, all of you are paying for this. You guys are buying from minorities right now, and you're doing this. And it was an eye-opening for them, right? Because that was an internal awareness that they had to know, that they're already doing business with minorities, right? They're already doing business with women. So they are already doing business with diverse firms. They just have to exert a little bit more effort and be a little bit more intentional in their pursuit of growing it. Because like I said, I know buyers are like, just like signing off on contracts. And I don't want to go too deep into this, but I did a survey when I was at Supplier Diversity. For 3 months, I tracked every contract. 99% of those contracts were re-signed. Only 1% was going out for bid. And in that 1%, we were doing $250 million worth of business.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I just want to piggyback on Fernando and also Raymond's point. I think it's the intentional investment, right?
Yeah.
If you want to do this, you have to really invest into the system to make it successful. Having that one time that the FTE within your corporations, organizations who focus on this, and being able to look at those numbers and say, where can we make the most impact, right? From the private corporation standpoint. But I also want to say that there is responsibility as a community, as a society, to address some of the inequities that we have seen. And I think that's where government comes in, and the philanthropy comes in, is to how do you build those infrastructures outside of your corporations, because there's several pieces to the puzzle. And all those puzzles had to come together. So as corporations are investing into this issue and truly investing into capital investment into this, the community as a whole will need to do it as well. And that's why I say we're in a great opportunities, because one thing that happened in the pandemic is that it illuminated the inequities that we have seen. It's there, but it illuminated. And I'm looking at some data right now where the median household income for Black Americans in Utah is $41,000 versus $73,000 for whites. There's an inequity of $20,000. And to your point, Fernando, as we think about how is this community going to support my grandchildren, we have to close that inequity gap. And one of the ways to do it is really building on the strengths of the community. And we know that the strengths of our community, the multicultural community, is that they are great entrepreneurs. They know how to do businesses. All they need to do is that opportunity to help lift themselves up. And why this is so important piece of the puzzle in closing those inequities is really building on. And we're just talking about let's invest in the infrastructure, let's invest in the systems. Let's think about intentionally what we need to accomplish as we look at this inequities and what are the strategies we need to move forward as a community collectively.
Wow.
And one last comment on, just to piggyback on Z, you know,
Yeah.
like this full-time resource that corporations need to really allocate. It pays for itself, even though sourcing and supply is considered to be a cost center. When you invest in a supplier diversity executive like yourself, James, and you bring the value to Zion Bank, the return on investment for your position is paid times over. It's a self-funding operation. It's a self-funding position. I'm sure that Raymond has brought so many suppliers to the airport that he's paid for his salary times over every year.
That's why he's rocking that three-piece suit.
And those nice glasses of his, right? So what I'm saying, it really is a self-funding operation, and we need to continue to have this dialogue, right? So we level up the MBEs, the diverse businesses. We bring in the right person. We're intentional in how we go out there to look at it, and then we really impact the community. And I was just looking at some numbers. We support about 30 businesses in Utah, and those 30 businesses generate over $250 million a year, and they pay $85 million in wages.
Wow,
that's pretty significant, right? And they hire over like 1,700 employees, and they half of them are people of color. That's impact. That's
very impactful.
One thing I wanted to interject, because I want to make sure that no one feels that they're not being included in this whole conversation.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of going on, what we've talked about, we talked about small businesses owned by women and minorities, talking about minorities, Blacks, Asians, what have you. But to be inclusive and make sure that we talked about some of the entities in Utah, when you say, Raymond, where do we find folks? We find folks at places like, you know, Buy Utah First, Support Local. We're talking about people that have certification programs or advocacy programs, such as the LGBTQ plus community, as well as veteran-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned businesses, as well as women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses. Small business itself, small business based on size. Again, it's putting on the lenses to look, as Fernando, as well as Z has said, by taking the time and look, you can find someone that can provide a good service that is saying reputably, hey, I'm here to provide something quality, and I'm here, hear me roar. If you can't hear me, only I need to roar a little bit louder, but here I am here to roar, and I need you to help. I'm not here to help, I'm here to assist. I'm here to provide, because this is what I do. And that's that opportunity. And by those businesses putting on their lenses to see folks, you'd be surprised on how clear you could see.
That's great. Well, as we draw to a wrap up here, I definitely want to save some time for any type of Q&A. You know, as people start building up the Supplier Diversity program, obviously I invited you guys to participate because you are facilitators and leaders in diverse businesses and making sure they're getting the contracts, and then you're working together with corporations, state and public agencies to grow there. Now I'll go to you first, Z. It's like, how can an investor or private business like get involved in the efforts of what you're doing?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I am co-chair of the Multicultural Empowerment Subcommittee of the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission, which is another mouthful, and was put together by the legislature last year. And this committee is making recommendations to identify opportunities for state investment. And one of the opportunities that was adopted was a one-time investment from the state of Utah to build up the infrastructures from the state level. So we recommended for full-time FTE plus additional fundings to support the creation of or expand the infrastructure to support a council or network of individuals to work collectively on exactly this. So we are beginning to have those conversations by now. Obviously, for those of you, we're still waiting for the legislative session to to come out. And if that does come out, what we hope to do is convene a meeting of all the stakeholders, include many of them that Raymond have talked about before, who have been in the space: the Swazo Center, the Black Chamber, the Asian Chamber, the Women's Business Center, the Veteran-Owned Business Resource Center, so on and so forth. But I also want to plug in the importance of also the private businesses to be a part of this conversation. We mentioned this over and over again, there is lots of pieces in this puzzle, and it's important for all of those pieces to come together in having those discussions. So we hope that we'll have something coming up in the next month or so, and we invite everyone to be a part of this conversation and work together to really shift that needle and build the infrastructure that would last us for generations to come.
Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to participating in that and looking forward to hearing more about that. I'm excited about this opportunity, and thanks, Z, for facilitating and leading in those efforts there. Fernando, I know I'll go to you. Not many people here, maybe there are some that are not so familiar with the Minority Supply Development Council, but either you're a small business or a corporate business. How do they get involved with the council? In what ways can they support and help and introduce them to opportunities?
So thank you, James. I hate to say this, but this pandemic really did slow down a lot of our activity, right? So it slowed down a lot of our travel, and it wasn't because we didn't want to travel. It was because we didn't want to run the risk of us being the organization that exposed anybody to any harm, right? So we wanted to make sure that we kept our constituents safe. So that kind of put the kibosh on our travel. But our plans were always to Salt Lake and Utah is a very, very robust region for us. It's growing, businesses are growing. And to your point, Raymond and Z and James, keeping the money in the state versus exporting it out of state is very, very important, right? And so from our perspective, we can be reached at www.nwmmsdc.org, and we can be reached through that. We can be reached via phone call. I'll put our link in the zone in the chat so that everybody can see it. But anybody can reach out to us, or we can reach out to you. And then we have our MBEs that are in Utah. They're always connected. That's how, James, that's how you and I connected, right? Because one of our MBEs, right? So that's how we connected with your power company there, because of one of our MBEs there as well, right? So leveraging the MBEs that are there, leveraging the partnerships that we've just created here, Z and Raymond, leveraging these partnerships, this is how we can become more robust as a community to support the growth. But we focus on state by state and then regionally. So who in Utah can we leverage as a corporate member to support the growth of MBEs? Who can we leverage across the region to support those MBEs as well? So I'll put the chat my email in the chat as well.
Great. And then with that being said, you mentioned that travel really was put to a kibosh with this pandemic. Are there some opportunities coming where the Northwest Minority Supply Development Council will be coming into Salt Lake, and some things that we can start participating in?
Our intention was to really travel in 2019, and that was our intention, right? Our intention was critical mass: Washington, Oregon, Utah, Alaska, Montana, right? That's our critical mass. Little bit of business in Wyoming, a little bit of business in Idaho. And that was our plan, is that we were going to start traveling. So now that's in the plan for this year, because now that things are going to open up, that's our plan, James.
Great. We're looking forward to it, to linking up with you again, because I think the last time we saw each other in person was 2018 or 2017, around there. It's been a little while. It's been a little while. Raymond, the Black Chamber, we received some information from you about some things happening as we try to spread the word about some opportunities there. But how else can people get involved with things that you have moving forward within the airport, or any announcements that you have to the people for be aware of?
Well, first and foremost, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but at the airport, since 2010, that was the last time the airport did a procurement for concessionaires. Between 2010 and 2017, because when we did our procurement in 2017, getting ready for our opening in 2020, the number of small businesses owned by women and minorities, we were able to double the number of businesses. So we started out with 6 businesses that actually did concessions in the airport. We were able to double that.
That's awesome.
We were able to double the number of joint ventures. Someone the other day asked me, gee, as they walked through my airport, they said, gee, how does a business get an opportunity to be into the airport? And it's a procurement process. But behind those scenes, some of the things that I have done and working with other people here at the airport to make it happen, in putting contract goals and saying, I'm encouraging you to go out and find firms that are certified in the program. So that way you can meet, greet, and bring them a part of your contract to be working at the airport. I strongly, strongly, strongly believe that there's such an opportunity for small businesses here locally to still participate in our airport, a part of our community. Again, spending that dollar and re-spending that dollar. How many times do we get to spend that dollar in our local community? Some of the things I have coming up to make that kind of stuff happen. April 14th, and I know that this webinar may be dated, but April 14th of this year, I'm having a lunch and learn of where I'm having the director of the Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization under the United States Department of Transportation, which is directly connected to the Secretary of Transportation. That director will be out here doing a lunch and learn locally. I'm also bringing in the program manager for Supplier Diversity Purchasing with Delta Airlines. I'm bringing them in here locally to talk about how to do business with Delta Airlines 101. So
Is that Axel? Is that Axel, Raymond? Is that Axel?
No. Is it I'm sorry?
Is that Axel that's coming out to your place?
No. I got somebody else.
Okay.
Hey, I got it whipped up, baby. I got it whipped up. But that's one thing that's happening on April 14th. April 26th is the National Airport Rental Car Supplier Diversity Outreach Webinar event. What that basically means is I have 72 airports that are participating in doing an outreach event all on the same day, Tuesday, April 26th, to show the solidarity on how we increase the number of businesses that are providing goods and services to the rent-a-car industry. So we have the rent-a-car, the big 3 of the rental car industry participating and telling their local people, their rent-a-car local people at the various 72 airports that are participating, this event's coming up, it's important, you need to be there. And so the airports are putting on a local event as well as we're putting on a national webinar all on that same day, tying into the events to make people aware of what the opportunities are to buying things at the local level at the given airports, what the local airports and the local rental car companies are purchasing in those given communities. Airports from Hawaii to Alaska to Bangor, Maine, down to Miami, all the way across to Seattle and all up to Seattle and everything else in between are participating. And I've got to include even the airport in Puerto Rico is participating in this event. So it's an event that's taking place over 6 time zones and, United States all the way across the country. So that's another event coming up on the 26th. We always do an outreach event coming up in August. Be on the lookout. Again, making people aware of what procurements are coming out, what concessions procurements are coming out, what constructions procurements are coming out. I usually will have some of the local folks that have opportunities at their airports or engineers that have projects at various airports throughout the state at that event, which is a great event for folks to come and to find out what's happening here locally or around the state that you can procure and build your resume on. This is the stuff that I can do so that way I can compete in the mainstream.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Raymond. That's awesome. As we wrap up here, I don't know if the audience has any questions they could pose in the Q&A section or they want to raise their hand. But in the meantime, see if anything is posted there. Raymond, Fernando, and Z. It's indeed always a pleasure to engage with you guys. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge about supplier diversity and helping educate our community about supplier diversity. And if you guys like to learn more about Zions Bank's supplier diversity program, you can go to zionsbank.com/supplier diversity. It provides information there on how we're looking to get more diverse businesses into our supplier and diverse business strategy.
James, and we need to include folks like American Express, Sinclair. There's an oil company, and the name is excluding me right now, but U.S. Bank. There's some other
Chevron.
folks out there that have programs. Who?
Yeah.
Chevron?
Oh, yes, Chevron, that have programs that need to say hello and put on their glasses to say, ooh, who's out there that I can see, and that can help me?
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to get all of our corporations that have a program together and continue brainstorming, connect with Z, Fernando, Raymond, or myself as we like to elevate not only the supplier diversity, but just our community overall, and continue the momentum of our economic growth here in Utah. So with that, thank you guys so much for participating. And then we'll just catch you next time within the next Utah Business Magazine webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank
James. Nice
you.
to meet you. Nice to meet
It's a pleasure
everybody.
to meet you all.
Thank you all.
Good to see you.
I'll pop in just for one quick second with my voice. Thank you guys again so much for taking the time to join today, and James for organizing this panel and for moderating and for all of your wonderful insights. And for anybody who missed it at the top of the hour, this webinar is being recorded and it is going to be available online at utahbusiness.com by the end of the day. So you can find it there. Thank you guys so much for everything. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, McKenna. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
I'll take care. I'm going to my airport.
All right.